It's funny, I heard the guy that started Franklin Planner Company talking about this. He was talking about when your why is big enough, you'll do things that you didn't even think you could do. And there's this whole illustration. I think we're going to try to do a video that talks about this illustration of where he has people trying to walk across a board, and talks about raising it up between two skyscrapers and who would be willing to walk across the board. And so when I think about what my why is or my reason, it's multi-layered. Number one, I have that three-part mission statement, which is make money, make memories, make a difference. When I get up in the morning, I'm driven by making sure that I'm taking care of my family, I'm fulfilling all my responsibilities, the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And then everything else from a business perspective is about the game, competing. Our COO, Jay Benoit, and I have talked about this a lot, that when you're doing work that you love doing, it doesn't really feel like work. It's enjoyable, it drives you, you get excited about it. And I think that's a lot of it is the why is the game. It's like, what is it that you're pursuing and how can you win? I like winning. I mean, I like winning a lot. And so when I'm not winning, the opposite of that is true. When I feel like I've been put in a position I can't win, that drives me nuts, and I tend to shy away from those. And so I look for opportunities that can help me fulfill on that purpose of making money, making memories, making a difference. People often say, how do you keep your personal and professional life in balance? I don't think it's possible. I think that work-life balance is a myth. And I often talk about the fact that I don't believe that it's a matter of balancing. I think it's a matter of blending. I think it's involving your family and those that you care about in your professional pursuits. And my kids are as a result, very entrepreneurial. My 12-year-old has a business. My 20-year-old has a business. I'm sure my 7-year-old will have a business at some point. But who cares? Who knows? But the point is that they get to see me in the game. They get to see me pursue. And as a result, I think it's expanded their life and their mind and makes them think bigger and think about what's possible. And, whenever you look at our lives, we travel, we spend time together, but there's times when I have to step away and make a phone call. There's times when the kids know, don't come in the office, I'm working. But there's also times when we play hard, so we try to work hard, we try to play hard, and most of the time that stuff is blended together. It's not this, I'm going to make sure that I put in this much time over here and put in this much time over here. I will say something about what people talk about balance. If you're an entrepreneur and you're really pursuing big things, balance is almost impossible. I mean, yes, you want to blend your family in, you want them to be a part of what you're doing, but you're going to have to work. You're going to have to hustle. You're going to have to push. If it was easy, everybody would be successful, but it's not easy, and so it takes extra effort. My greatest challenge in business is still my greatest challenge in business. It's getting out of my own way. I am a bit of a control freak. And it's learning, I learned early on, and I think I've been really successful in leveraging the knowledge and experience and expertise of other people, surrounding myself with people who are smarter than me, but I still struggle every day, and it's been this way since I started my first company at 19, is being willing to let go and let other people do what they do well and trusting them. And part of that comes from, just be honest, I've made bad decisions in bringing on team members, hiring people over the years, and had the wrong person in the role, and then I get disappointed at the results. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's not knowing how or not thoroughly taking the time to explain what I want. I think I get better at this. I certainly try, get better at this every day, but it's still that challenge of figuring out how do you take that vision that's in your head and your heart and communicate that to other people. Not only get them to buy into it, but get them to act on it and to leverage all of their knowledge and expertise around that common vision. I often say that people organized around a common mission, a common purpose, a common vision become an unstoppable force. And I believe that, But at the same time, there's that real human side of me that just has trouble letting go. All right, so if I think about all the businesses that I've started over the years, the first business would be important to me because it was the first, and it was that first entrepreneurial pursuit. And everything was new. I was learning everything for the first time: how to produce product, how to sell. In my case, not knowing how to sell, and therefore having some real learning curves and failures there in the early days. So that's important to me. The business that Tanya and I started in 1995 or 96, we started a magazine publishing company, series of magazines for the 50 plus market, is important to me because that was a comeback story for us. We had, in 1995, at the age of 25, I went bankrupt. We lost everything, lost our home, our cars, had to move out. Got an apartment. I went to work selling ladies' shoes at Foley's, which later became Macy's shoe store or department store. I waited tables at Olive Garden. I mowed yards. I went and worked with my father-in-law trimming trees. I delivered pizzas for Domino's. We did whatever we could to survive and try to find a way back. And a buddy of mine that I went to church with came to me one day and he said, I was in California and I saw this little resource guide, and he had brought a copy back. He said, I saw this little resource guide magazine thing for the 50 plus market, and he was selling to that market. He did trust and structures for people that were retirement age. And so he said, I think you ought to do one of those here. We don't have one of those in this market, and if you'll do one, I'll be your first customer. And so in 1996, Tanya and I started all over again, and we started that magazine in the front room. At that point, we had bought, and this is a whole other story, but we had bought a house with no money down, no credit, owner financed, a house with 2 garage apartments. And we started over our next business, which became Options at 50 Plus, and that front room of that 2-bedroom house, and Tanya would call all the businesses and get their information. She'd send them a packet, and then I would follow up with them and get an appointment and go out and sell them. And in 6 weeks, we put that magazine in the black. And anyone that's ever done magazine publishing will understand that most magazines, most publications lose money for many years or many months before they ever turn a profit. We turned a profit on our first issue of the magazine, and we were off and running. And in 3 years, we built that company, 4 years, built that company up into a chain of magazines in 3 states and sold the company. And so that one is important to me because it's the comeback story, the biggest comeback story. And it was my first, I had an exit in my first company, so I sold out to my partners ultimately and exited the first business. But that was the first time we had built something that was substantial and sold it and collected a check and was like, yes, I did that. And so that's important to me. And then the current business that we run now, Harbor City Group and Harbor City Capital, I like and is important to me because I tell everybody it's the sum total of everything I've ever done. It's leads, it's client acquisition, it's media, it's marketing, it's content. It's like all of these things wrapped into this business and the principles that drive it: client acquisition, investing to get a customer or a client, turning an ROI, putting $1 in and getting more than $1 back out. So it's like Harbor City is I tell people, Harbor City is the sum total of everything I've learned in 27 years of building companies. People often ask, how do you manage to do so much? I don't sleep sometimes. My team can attest to that. They'll see me sending Slack messages at 3 and 4 in the morning. Or it was funny. In fact, it was this last weekend. I was sending Slack messages, and multiple members of our team at Harbor City and Responsive were answering back in Slack on the weekend. And I started to say, stop. You don't have to work, just because I'm working, you don't have to work on the weekend. I know everybody loves what we're doing, is bought into the vision of what we're doing, but it's exciting to see other people follow that lead. But I tell people, sometimes, and people that work with us have gotten accustomed to this. Certainly my family has, and our staff and stuff. But I'll run real hard sometimes for days or weeks at a time, and then I'll crash, and I rest for hours, and so that's part of it. The second is again, going back to trying to find people to leverage to get more done, that's big. Technology certainly big. Finding little tricks and tools like even the scheduling tool that we use to schedule appointments. In the old days, we would say, so, you'd email them back or text them back and say, well, how's Wednesday look for you? And they'd say, Wednesday I'm busy, maybe Thursday. Okay, well, how's 2 o'clock on Thursday look for? Well, no, I'm busy, and you go this back and forth. Whereas now with the scheduling tools, you just give somebody a link and they go and schedule an appointment for themselves. It saves time. So technology obviously has given us a lot of leverage points and tools, automations, things like that do some of the heavy lifting for us. People, tools, and then processes, we're getting better and better at those. Our team has bought into the idea that we will produce a better product, we'll be more successful if we create repeatable processes. And so, even this weekend was with my COO, we were whiteboarding, mapping stuff out on the whiteboard, figuring out what are the processes, what are the steps it take. So it comes down to people and processes and automations, technology. I heard years ago that behind every successful man is a happy wife and a surprised mother-in-law. The fact is that in business, you have to have people that support you and buy into the vision. I heard someone say years ago that we're the sum total of the 5 people we spend the most time with. If you think about that with your kids, with your staff, all of that, is who are they hanging around? If there's problems in their life, look at who they're hanging around. It's very likely influencing what they're like. And so I learned years ago to get all the negative people out of my life and try to surround myself with people that support the vision, buy into the vision. So that's important. That doesn't mean that you have a bunch of yes people. You need to have people that are willing to tell you when you're wrong. And you need advisors and people that can help you see around the corner. I heard Jack Welch, I think it was, talking about recently that great CEOs have this innate ability to see around the corner, and part of that is what they do themselves, and part of it is what they leverage other people to help them see what they can't see. And so I think that's really, surrounding myself with great people has been part of it. My wife, she and I talk about this. We worked in business together for many, many years, and then when we had children, and now we homeschool, and we've homeschooled since my 20-year-old homeschooled all the way from kindergarten all the way through school and graduated. And both of our other children are homeschooled, and so she has a commitment there, and she doesn't work in the business on a day-to-day basis like she used to. And we've talked about that, and it's painful for her at times, because she was accustomed to being very much, she ran the whole editorial department. She was the managing editor for our publications, and from day one, we've been in the trenches together. And so even though she's not in the trenches, she has been my most trusted advisor. I tell people she has a sense of insight that is unlike anybody else's. Probably shouldn't say this on video, but when I'm vetting a partner or a key team person or whatever, a lot of times I'll take them out to eat with Tanya. And she's a barometer for me and a sensor for me, and we'll talk about it afterwards. But when we're driving on trips, when we're flying, we're riding, when we're alone, we talk about business, and I ask her opinion, and I don't always agree with her. And a lot of times it's funny because she teases me because she'll tell me something, and she's right, but I fight against it. And then 3 or 4 or 5 weeks or months later, somebody else will tell me the same thing. And then I follow the instructions or the idea, and I come back and tell her, oh, I did this, blah, 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 whatever it was, I did it. And she'll be like, I told you that, weeks or months ago. And so it's hard when it's the person you love and you care, you're close to and all that, always to accept when they tell you you're wrong. But I have found that most of the time she's right. Okay, so people have seen the amount of content that we pump out, and it's a lot. It's been a lot over the years. I think we estimated that I've got well over 1 million of my words already transcribed, and we haven't transcribed all of my training programs and speeches and interviews and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more coming, and we're producing more. Just today, when we did this interview, right before the interview, I taught a 1-hour web class. After this interview, I'm being interviewed on a 30-minute podcast. All of that's content. We record that, we capture it, and we put it out there. So there's several reasons why we put out so much content. Number one is I'm a big believer that in life, it's not just about content, but in life, the more you give, the more you get. But you got to give before you get. That's law. You can't get around that. And the more that you put out into the universe, the more the universe will bring back to you. Now, whether you're like Oprah and feel all woo-woo and like whatever, there's this cosmic force or something, or whether you just realize that the more people you serve, the more people want to serve you back, and that's just a natural cause and effect, it works. It works big time. Well, content has this additional layer because your content, if done right, serves people. It helps solve their problem or move them closer to a solution to their problem, and also makes them feel good, so it's motivational or it's inspiring or helps them in their life, maybe have a better relationship with their kids or their wife or whatever. So it solves a problem, makes them feel good, which is the reasons that people buy. But the other thing is that it stacks lots of layers of trust and authority. And when you do that, you move. I say that when you speak, when you publish books, when you put out content, video, whatever it might be, podcast, etc., when you put all that content out into the world, you transcend from selling to serving to prescribing. And what I mean by that is that when you get into a selling environment, if you've given and given and given, and those people now trust you on the same level really that they do like their doctor or their psychiatrist or psychologist, then you're not trying to tell them, hey, you should buy my product. You're saying, okay, John, so what we're going to do is we're going to work together for the next 12 weeks. We're going to meet once a week. We're going to do this. Or, hey, John, so this is what your house needs to look like. Or, hey, Mary, we're going to put your house on the market, and what we're going to do is we're going to list it here, and we're going to... All of that content that you've put out stacked on that authority status, and those people begin to associate with you much in the way that they do a physician. And when you go to the doctor and you get a prescription, you don't call your cousin Harry on the way home and say, what do you think? Should I go get the prescription filled? No, you go get the prescription filled because you trust the doctor. So you want to put yourself into that same position of authority, and the best way to do that is by giving to others with your content. People ask, where can I connect with you? I come off the platform and speaking, how can I connect with you? And I'm like, we're doing our best to achieve omnipresence. We try to be everywhere that our market is. And so whether you're in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you are, we're probably there. And I'm either JP Maroney or at JP Maroney. It's not hard to connect with me in that way. All right, so I'm very proud of this, actually. It is Best New Sales Performer Award in District. This was in 2016, and it was the President's Recognition Program. All right, so there's a funny story about me and Avon, but it also makes a really valid point about how powerful digital media is and advertising is. So I had a guy that was working with me back in 2016. His wife had sold Avon. He had figured out how to run ads to produce Avon sales in volume. And he came to me one day and he's like, hey boss, we got this money to run these campaigns with. What if we ran some campaigns for Avon? All you'd have to do is sign up. I'll take over the account and promote it. And so it was funny because you had to sell, I think it was $10,000 worth of product in your first 30 days to qualify for this particular level. We just blew past that. And so these checks were coming in like regularly. They were ACH deposits, but I was getting these pretty substantial deposits on Avon, but I didn't even pay attention to it. And what was funny was somebody else was getting the emails because one of my team members had signed up for the account. So they were getting all the emails. I didn't know when anybody was ordering. I just saw the spreadsheets and I knew that we were making a positive ROI. So I was like, that's pretty cool. So fast forward about 6, 8, 10 months later, I got this box in the mail, shipment. It was a pretty big box, and it had Avon on it. Now, in my mind, I thought that they had shipped out a kit, like with some makeup and perfume and stuff in it to pitch Avon, and which I didn't have any desire to do. And so I set it aside in the garage. And so it sat out there and sat out there and sat out there in the garage. And finally, our housekeeper brought it in one day and set it on the counter. And I wasn't there, and my wife and my daughters found it, and they opened it. So I get home, and my 7-year-old and my 12-year-old, Valia and Zalise, they're rolling in the floor. One of them is holding this, and Zalise, the 7-year-old, she's laughing. She's like, "You got a girl trophy." And so I won this. I won a trip to the Caribbean. I was apparently announced and was supposed to walk across stage. I didn't even know this existed, so I wasn't there. I got earrings, which I'm not going to wear for anybody. I got some makeup. I got some other jewelry, some perfume. I have a plaque. Yeah, so like I was top in this and top in that and top in this. Now, the point of that is that digital media, and I tell people this all the time, digital media has the power to accelerate selling faster than anything else out there. It's more scalable. So let's go back a little bit. One of my favorite ways of growing a business is using strategic alliances and joint ventures. That's a quick way to get a shot in the arm, a jump start to a business. But the fastest way to scale a business is to find a campaign that works at some level. And for every dollar you're putting in, you're getting more than $1 back out. And from that, you can blow it up. So yeah, digital media and Avon, and I made President's Club. I love speaking. And you know, what's interesting is at my busiest, I was doing 150 dates a year. That's insanity. So you're getting on a plane, off a plane, on it. You know, it's just crazy. And I have no desire to do that. These days, if I speak 15 times a year, I'd be happy. 20 would be crazy. I do tons of webinars and webcasts, so that gives us that ability to reach a lot of people without having to get on a plane or travel anywhere. But I still like to speak in front of the right audiences. Years ago, my mentor shared something with me that was really powerful. He said, "JP, what would you rather do? Sell people one at a time or get them all in one room and sell them at the same time?" And speaking gives you that power. It does a lot of those other things we've talked about as far as authority building and positioning yourself as well. But it certainly gives you that one-to-many ability. So I still accept engagement requests in front of the right audiences, and people will ask, you know, what's your fee, a speaking fee? Over the years, I've charged as much as $10,000 to $15,000 for a speech, depending on what it was. These days, if it's the right organization and it's the right audience, it's not as much about the fee. Sometimes we'll have people donate a small something to a charity or whatever if they don't have a big budget. But it's really, for us, it's about getting in front of the right people, the right audience with the right message.
Get more content plus free bonuses and resources at jpmaroney.com/VIP.